The day is almost here. That's right. This week we finally have the release of the Digimon TCG. It's been a difficult wait, but for at least those of you who have plans for Thanksgiving, that'll help put you in a food coma, just knock you out for those last few hours while we wait for this last day before we can get our hands on those sweet, sweet Digimon cards. So, with the upcoming release of the game, I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the mechanics and things that I'd like to see added to the game in the coming sets, and just different things from the Digimon lore that could be pretty cool to see in future cards. So, starting off in no particular order, Armor Digivolution. So, I know this probably won't be the most exciting topic for people on this list, but I still think it would be something really interesting to see come to the TCG at some point. So, Armor Digimon are usually considered on the weaker end of Digimon, usually between rookie and champion level, with the golden armor evolutions usually kind of being treated as ultimates. So, I feel like some people would probably argue that they would kind of just be pointless to add to the game because of this. Kind of just weaker, unnecessary Digimon taking up space. But I feel like if the creators wanted to add armor evolution to the game, they could definitely come up with some interesting ways to make up for the lower power of these Digimon with some cool effects or just different unique mechanics or a cheaper cost to help compensate for these Digimon usually being on the lower end of the digital food chain. But outside of just the effects that could be put on the Digimon themselves, I think there are two ways they could actually make these Digimon stand out and create some really unique mechanics surrounding them. So my first idea would be surrounding the Digi-Eggs. So the way I imagine Armor Digivolution in this game is you would have your Armor Digimon, they'd have their play cost, their Digivolution cost like normal, and then they could have a third possible cost that maybe is just playing a Digi-Egg or a Digi-Egg and then you get a discounted memory cost for the Digimon. And this would be kind of similar to how some Digimon have two colors to Digivolve from, but instead of two colors, you have just your normal cost and then your Digi-Egg cost. So this would make the Armor Digimon a little bit more difficult to play because in addition to the memory cost to bring them out, you'd also need to have this Digi-Egg cost. But if the Digi-Eggs themselves were option cards, I think a cool feature for them would maybe to be adding a search feature for them. So let's say you have the Digi-Egg of Courage, you could pay its cost to play it, let's say 2 memory, and when you play it, you would be allowed to search your deck for one Digimon that specifically has the Digi-Egg of Courage as a cost to it. You could pull that Digimon from your deck and then play it immediately. That could be a cool way to make the Digi-Eggs useful because the armor Digimon would be weaker, but you also get the option to kind of like search through your deck and maybe make them a little bit more consistent to play them. And a second idea, which I think could help this mechanic stand out more and really make it viable, would be if the Digi-Eggs themselves had inheritable traits for Digimon. Right now, we've only seen Digimon with traits that can be passed on to other Digimon, and not even all Digimon have it. Imagine if these Digi-Eggs were option cards and maybe instead of a security effect, or in addition to the security effect, it had an inheritable effect. So that when you bring out this armor Digimon, you would put the Digi-Egg under it as well, and it could have a cool boost that it would apply to just all these different Digimon. And so each Digi-Egg could focus on a different inheritable trait that you could pass on to all of the armor Digimon that use that egg. And maybe all of that is too complicated, and I might just be asking for too much, but I just think it would be something cool to see brought to the game, and those are my thoughts on how it could be handled. Moving on, the next thing I'd like to see, mode changes. There are so many Digimon with different modes or just upgraded forms. Specifically for me, the ones I'd really like to see are Gallantmon Crimson mode and Biozamon Blast mode, since to me they're just some of the coolest Digimon and were some of the earlier ones to get additional forms beyond their base mega forms. These could either be higher levels for existing Digimon. So, for example, this could take a lot of the current level 6s we have to level 7s, or they could just be more powerful and more expensive variations of the level 6s we already have. So maybe Gallimon Crimson mode would still be a level 6, just a higher cost and different effects, and you could choose whether you brought him out or just brought out your normal Gallimon. And if you've been keeping up with the current release of the cards in Japan, you probably know the current set they're working on, set 4, is already going through season 4 of Digimon, going through a lot of those hybrid spirit Digimon, which means we're probably right around the corner from those season 5 Digimon coming out. So it's really only a matter of time until we start getting different modes or forms of Digimon, since that was probably the season that featured that mechanic the most, since almost all of the main Digimon from that series were able to go to burst mode. So whenever they get around to having season 5 as their focus for the card game, I'm sure that's when we'll also start to get a lot of modes, if not sooner. And next up, we have Digicross. I'm not really sure how they were going to be able to handle this when they eventually build up to this season. I'll be honest, when I first started Cross Wars, it was really weird to me, since it's so different from traditional Digimon, but I ended up liking the season a lot more than I thought it would by the time I made it to the end of it, and there were a lot of cool Digimon in it. So at the very least, I'm sure we'll see a lot of the Digimon from that season, like Shoutmon, Omega Shoutmon, all of the main protagonist Digimon. But if they just give us the typical Digimon and never really touch on Digicross, I feel like that would be a missed opportunity. Finding some way to implement multiple different Digimon coming together could be pretty cool. Maybe they can attach themselves to other Digimon, almost like equip cards, and kind of buff the main Digimon they're attaching to that way. Maybe they go the Yu-Gi-Oh route and eventually add an extra deck to Digimon, where you can have all these Digicross cards that you can bring out if you have the right Digimon out on your field, which theoretically an extra deck could be a good way to bring in a lot of the weirder Digivolution mechanics into the game. Not saying that they should go that route, because that could get messy and brings a whole new set of complications, but if they did, I'd be interested in seeing what the creators could do with that. For number 4, Spirit Evolution. So technically, we've already gotten a glimpse of this. I believe a handful of cards have been revealed for hybrid Digimon that instead of digivolving them from a rookie level 3 Digimon, you can choose to digivolve them from a tamer that you have on the field, which I think is a neat idea. Although most of the cards we've seen so far have been pretty underwhelming, especially considering if you're gonna digivolve into a level 4 Digimon from a tamer, a lot of the times that's gonna end up being more expensive than just digivolving a regular level 4 from a regular level 3, since a lot of level 3s you can digivolve to for 0 cost, as opposed to tamers, which typically cost around 2 memory. And then if you decided to digivolve them, you'd also have the added consequence of losing that tamer's effect, which might not be worth it to bring out a mediocre level 4 Digimon. So it's still early on. We have to wait and see what kind of support they decide to add for these Digimon to make them more viable, more worthwhile to use. But personally, I think the number one thing they could do to make this mechanic a lot more interesting is make new tamers that have Digivolution traits. Because let's say you bring out a level 4 hybrid Digimon and you're digivolving him from like Tai. In addition to the other disadvantages of doing this, now you just don't get an inheritable trait from the tamer, as opposed to digivolving from an Agumon, for example, and gaining that bonus 1000 attack power during your turns. Giving tamers some traits they can pass on might make them a little bit more worth it to digivolve from. That, and just seeing what kind of tamers they decide to add from Season 4, what kind of effects they have to help support and encourage hybrid Digivolution, should be interesting to see over the next couple weeks as more cards are revealed from Set 4. And last but not least for this video, X Antibody Digimon. This is one of those things that, just like mode changes, is really only a matter of time before we see. A lot of you are probably already familiar with X Antibody Digimon, mostly appearing in some of the manga, a few specific video games, and the older card game. But essentially, they're a whole subset of Digimon who carry this thing called the X antibody, which makes them immune to a program that's supposed to delete all Digimon, which has the added side effect of making them look super badass and giving them upgraded X forms. These Digimon tend to be more powerful and have awesome looking redesigns over their original versions. They will probably just take the form of more powerful, more expensive Digimon, but it'll be interesting to see if they have any effects that are unique to them, different summoning or Digivolution requirements. But there is a whole awesome collection of X Digimon out there that they could definitely pull from and add throughout the game that people would be really excited to collect and add to their decks. And that was my top 5 list of things I'm currently hoping to see added to the Digimon TCG in the future. Let me know what you'd like to see added in the game in the comments below. I want to know what you all are excited for. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and are hyped for more Digimon content. I will be uploading lots of booster box opening videos as well as the starter deck openings over the next few days once I get a chance to pick up my pre-orders for the pre-release. I am super excited and I hope you are as well for the chance to get our hands on some actual cards. Hope you all are staying safe and have a good day.